Hi, and welcome back to Bean Talk. What do all of these different things have in common? Even this one, they're all espresso machines. Because today we want to talk about espresso machine anatomy, where I want to tell you a little bit about the inside of espresso machines and also what you might want to look out for if you want to buy your first espresso machine. Just a small disclaimer, this is not supposed to be a review video for either one of these espresso machines because this would take forever and it's not the purpose of this video. I just wanted to briefly explain you what a machine is built out of and what you should look out for in your first espresso machine or if you're trying to upgrade your espresso machine. So really we just have this one as a representative for the manual machines, then the dual circuit machines, and of course high-end dual boiler machines like these two. Before I start talking about the differences in these household espresso machines I have behind me, I want to talk a little bit about what's inside an espresso machine. Therefore, I have a model from an old La Cimbali M39 Dosatron, great old espresso machine. I want to talk to you a little bit about the different parts inside an espresso machine and how it works. Basically, what you need for one is of course a pump, which is not right here, but we need the pump to pump the water through our circuit. And then we need some sort of boiler to heat the water because we can't really brew a cold espresso. This machine in particular, it works through a heat exchanger system. So you might know this from your heating system at home, for example. But how this works is we have one large boiler like this one that has a heating element inside and heats up the water. And then we have our heat exchangers, which in the case of Cimbali look like this. So you have this that goes inside there, and then this is connected to your group head like this. So basically, the water inside your group is not heated directly, but indirectly through your boiler. You have the water going in here and then coming through the group head and then ultimately to your espresso. Why is this important to know? Later on, I want to talk to you a little bit about the thermosyphonic system, like this one, and differences to a dual boiler system, but we'll get to that later. But just wanted to show you how this works in general. So again, we have our boiler that heats our heat exchanger, and then this in turn brings the hot water to our coffee. We can go a lot into details about this, and I'm always happy to nerd out about it, but I think this should be for another video where we really do a deep dive into this sort of stuff. Let's start off by our first choice that I presented to you earlier, the Flair 58. I'm gonna start off talking about this one because it's actually quite simple to understand. In the model I showed you earlier, or with these two machines, you have a boiler inside that heats up the water and brings you the hot water directly to your coffee. In this case, because this is such a small build, this is of course not possible. There's no boiler, no heat exchanger system or whatever. How this works, what you can do is you can heat up this brewing chamber, and then you take hot water from your kettle and pour it on top here. And then you can make coffee. What you also don't have with this is a pump. You have to do it manually. It's a lever machine, and that's how it works. So basically you have your manometer here and you create the pressure onto the coffee puck by pressing down on this lever. So as you can see, this is a very simply built machine that just works completely manual. You have to heat up the water, put it in here, and then make espresso with it. Just want to show you this, that you see that there's also some easier options or cheaper options out there, even though it's not super easy, because if you're not familiar with making espresso, this can be very tricky because It's difficult to understand how much pressure you put on there, etc. Just want to briefly show you this. And now let's talk about more common household espresso machines that you might be familiar with, and some of the vocabulary they might use in parts. We have here Bellezza Chiara, and we have here our Faemina, and we also have our Flair single group over there. I want to talk to you about what is a single circuit, a dual circuit, or a dual boiler machine. A dual circuit would be what I showed you earlier, a machine like the model or like this one, where you have a heat exchanger system. So you have one boiler that heats up to a higher temperature, like 120 degrees Celsius, to create this steam, and the hot water for the tea. In this case, this machine doesn't have it. And then only indirectly this boiler heats up the water for the group head, meaning you can't control the temperature inside the group directly. You can only change the temperature of the main boiler, but not of the water coming out here. So this is what would be a dual circuit machine. Then there's also single circuit machines that are also out there, meaning you have only one boiler without a heat exchanger system. In that case, you can either brew an espresso or you can steam milk. Because for an espresso, you need around 90 to 95 degrees Celsius of water. And for steam, you need about 120 degrees Celsius. In that case, you would have to make your espresso first, then heat up the machine more to make steam if you want to steam milk. There's also what is called a dual boiler machine. In that case, you have two completely independent boilers, meaning there's one larger boiler in the back of the machine, which is for creating steam, like this, or the hot water. So you have for tea, and then you have one boiler that sits up front here that is just for creating the perfect water for your espresso. So in that case, you can set it directly. You can set the temperature. In this case, this machine is set to 91.5 degrees Celsius, and you get your water perfectly in this temperature dispensed. That's the boiler, and you see the differences is there between a dual circuit machine like this one and a dual boiler like this one, or also the Flair, of course. And then I want to talk about the pump. The pump of the espresso machine, of course, is necessary to pump the water in the right pressure onto the coffee puck. In case of our little Flair, you had to do it by hand. But of course, modern espresso machines come with a pump. The first one actually being the Faema E61 in the 60s. Also worth knowing, the E60 group head, of course, is named after the Faema E61. This is this sort of group head that is still used on many household machines. Just worth mentioning. Back to pumps. The electric pump that is used on cheaper household machines is a vibration pump, meaning you have an anchor that pumps water back and forth like this. And you can hear this is the classic sound that it makes, with a little bit of a higher frequency. And then there's a rotational pump. That's what more high-end machines would use. And of course, also most of the professional machines use a rotational pump, meaning you have an electric motor that rotates and pumps water through the machine. In general, if you look at these two different kinds of pumps, a vibrational pump and a rotational pump, then the vibration pump is a little bit smaller and cheaper, and the rotational pump is a little bit more expensive, but it's more consistent in the pressure and the flow of the water, the flow rate. It's also quieter, which makes a huge difference. If many of the vibration pump machines, if they get older, they get super loud. So if you're in a household where you might be the first one to wake up in the morning and you don't want to wake everyone else up, then maybe invest in a machine with a rotational pump, just because it's quieter and also more fun to work with, to be honest. But I just wanted to show you these little details. Both of these machines come with is a water tank. This machine you can fill up top, just like this. Either you take this water tank out or you pour the water directly in. Just make sure you don't spill any water on here and get the electrical circuits inside wet. And then the Faemina, if you want to know more about this machine, we have made a very detailed video in the past. We can link it in one of the corners, I never remember which one. And this also has a water tank inside and a drip tray you can remove. In our Espresso 101 video that we did a few weeks ago, we talked about the importance of consistency when making an espresso. This is also very important when choosing your espresso machine, because we want to have a very consistent temperature for one, of course, and very consistent water pressure or flow rate onto our coffee puck. That's why if you're very picky, of course, and you want to always have the right temperature and have the possibility to set the temperature directly, then you should definitely go with a dual boiler machine. If this is not so important to you and the water can also be a little bit hotter and you don't mind too much because you drink more Italian style espresso, then you can actually also make a great espresso with this machine. You want to buy an espresso machine. What should you consider? First of course, it's your budget. This is probably one huge question, whether you want to spend 600 euros or 10,000 euros, or even more. For example, the Flair is, I think, around 600, 700 euros right now. So it's actually quite cheap, but you also need to have some other equipment, like you have to have a kettle to boil the water, etc. Then if you look at this machine, this is around 1,300 euros. For a dual circuit machine, this is what you're usually looking at, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 euros. And then the Faemina and the Flair Espresso, both being the crème de la crème of the prosumer espresso machines, you're looking at around 6,000 euros. So there's quite a jump in the prices, of course, which is due to the different technology and parts inside the machine. Besides the price, of course, what should you look for? If you're willing to go the extra length and play around a whole lot with your espresso machine, maybe not being able to make the same coffee twice in a row, then you can definitely go for a manual espresso machine like the Flair, which you can make a great espresso with. You want more control in terms of having a consistent pressure, then of course go with one of the other two machines. Then it's also very important to know whether you like to drink milk or not, if you're on a budget especially. Because if you never drink milk and don't need to steam, then you can also maybe look at a single circuit machine. Even though they're not quite as good when it comes to temperature stability, you could still look at it. When you do like to drink coffee with milk, then definitely invest in a dual circuit or dual boiler machine, because when you have to heat up the machine extra for the steam, it's really a pain. And so therefore, you could look at this machine, for example, or similar ones. And then of course, if you have the budget and you want to have a whole lot of options with your espresso machine, also have the option to program the dose as with this one, then maybe you want to look at this sort of machine, a dual boiler machine that can really do anything. You can even connect it to the Wi-Fi, to an app, etc. You can program up to 5 different doses, have a great steam wand, and all that. So yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Also, briefly just to mention, all of these machines besides the Flair, of course, work with a boiler system. There are also some cheaper machines that use a thermal block, but to be honest, I don't have any standing around, and I was happy to borrow this one from Café Campus Games to make this video as well. Let me know down in the comments what you think of these espresso machines, if you already have one and which one you have. If you're looking to buy one, you can also leave it down in the comments and ask me for recommendations or whatsoever. That was the video for today. I hope I could help you a little bit to get to know the fabulous world of espresso machines. Yeah. Until next time, drink loads of good coffee. Bye.